Hello and welcome back to Transport Tycoon. Thank you very much for joining me today. I do hope you're well. Now, I've got a bit of explaining to do at the start of this episode because I'm having a bit of a disaster, I'll be honest, with this video. Now, usually with these Transport Tycoon videos, I record them live while I'm playing, which is exactly what I did with this episode. But for some reason, when I played back my recording, the microphone appears to have bugged in some way, and there was strong static over the entire video. So you could still just about hear me talking, but it was sort of a white noise static over the top. So obviously my audio, unfortunately, was completely unusable, which is a bit of a disaster, really, because it's a completely wasted episode without the audio. So what I'm doing, it took me a bit of playing around and discovery to work out that for some reason it was my microphone playing up. Now, I have no idea what caused it, but by a process of elimination I did figure out that it was the microphone and not my speaker system, or indeed the program in any way. But now I don't know why I unplugged my microphone and plugged it back in. I've tried it in a different USB socket. I've restarted the computer as well, and now it seems to be working. I hope. I mean, I might do all of this recording now and then replay it and it turns out the same, but I've just done some test recordings and it's absolutely fine. So I really don't know what was causing that, but it's really annoying. So there we go. So what I've done, I've extracted the audio from my video, and now I'm replaying the video on my computer, and then I'm recording a new audio track over the top. So this is what I used to do with my first videos, my Green Valley Zoo videos, when I did time-lapse videos. Obviously that's not how I am doing this series and most of my other series these days. So we'll see how it goes. So what I'm going to try and do is talk you through what I did in the episode, if I can remember. I'll tell you what I'm just doing here. I discovered that my coal trucks here weren't all making money. I had two different routes for coal trucks. I had 4 trucks on each route, which was too much. So I reduced each one to 3 trucks per route and just sold off the other ones. And we'll see how that does. So I can tell you in this episode we get our first planes, and we get some more boats going as well, and we also connect some banks with some valuable armoured trucks. So we do quite a lot in this episode actually, and it's a real shame that I've lost the audio because I don't think it's going to be quite the same with me explaining over the top, but I'll do my best. I promise I will do my best. So you can see here I decided I wanted to really focus on this main city here of Fenningpool Falls. It's where I've done most of my building already, and I wanted to start expanding it a bit. So I wanted to get another bus route and mail route on this little island area here. You've got this, it's not an island, but it looks like a little island of the city here on the outskirts, which wasn't covered by anything else. So I wanted to get some buses and mail vans on here. So I'm just having a look at the roads first, just making sure you've got these little circles of road for the vehicles to turn around. I then decided to add an extra bit of road down the outside there as well, so that vehicles have got options. It's always a good idea in this game to give vehicles multiple routes to go. Try and spread them out as much as you can, because otherwise you can really clog up the roads with what am I trying to say? You can clog up the roads with vehicles. You know, they end up getting stuck if they're forced to use a road that goes via a station. They can often just get stuck behind the vehicles that are actually using the station, which isn't a great idea. So you can see I went with the option of 2 passenger stations and a goods loading bay. I thought that was going to be plenty. It'd be too much for this little town down here, but if you've got the room you might as well build a slightly bigger station. There's no harm in that. because obviously this is connected to a very big city at the other end of this route, so you know there's going to be a lot of passengers and mail that can be picked up from there. So yeah, well worth just building that slightly bigger stop. So I use my usual thing of you just build one bus and then you clone it however many times you need. In this case I did go for 4. Might be a bit of overkill, certainly for the small place at the end here, Franningwell, but this Fenningpool Falls Heights should get plenty of passengers in it, so hopefully 4 buses will all still make money. And then I do a couple of mail trucks as well. So yeah, it's a very tricky process recording these. I'd really like to be able to get the music playing in the background as well, because the music in this game is fantastic, and I do miss it when I do these recordings. But I'm really not sure how I can make it quieter, because when I did a test recording with the music, it recorded it at full volume even though I'd turned the volume down in the game, which was a bit annoying. It'd be nice to have it in the background, just nice and quiet. There's probably a way of doing that, but I'm not an expert with the technology involved, so I'm not really sure what I'm doing. I may have to play around with it a bit more and see if I can figure out how to make it record at the reduced volume. Whether that's possible, I don't know. So here we go. So I'm looking at airports now. I wanted to get our first airports, and I thought this spot down here was a pretty good one. This is where the city is going to be expanding into, so it made sense to get it down here. Obviously I've just built the road down there, so you'll see in a moment I have to delete the road and rebuild it to be able to fit this airport in. One thing you want to do with the airports, you want to build a nice big airport straight away, because if you build a small one and then the city expands around it, you end up wanting to build a bigger one and then not being able to. So you go for a fairly large one straight away. This isn't actually the biggest. There's one that's a little bit bigger than this. Actually, I think it has three runways on it. But I forgot while I was building these ones. So, hey, but this is fine. 2 runways is generally more than enough. And then I wanted to connect it to this new town over here, Rinborne. And I thought this corner here was a pretty good spot for that. And so that goes in. I do some more later on in the video as well. This city here, Rinborne, this is where I'm going to be expanding to very soon. Probably in the next video I'll be doing some work over this area of the map, because there were 2 more cities very close to this, so it makes sense to get them all linked together and for this to be my next area that I focus on. Now it took me quite a while to scroll through all the different aeroplanes that are available here, because usually basically the lowest ones on the list are the best, but actually in this case it wasn't true. The speeds were very similar, but as you went up the list the capacities actually got a lot higher. I can't remember the one that I ended up going for, but it was a much older one than the newest on the list here. You'll see me in a minute start scrolling up and looking through them all. So you can see here most of these are sort of 80 passengers, and then suddenly you get a massive jump here up to 220 passengers, but they still travel the same speed. And then I think, yes, it's the Darwin is what I end up with, the Darwin 600. So the Guru Galaxy, there's 240, and then the Darwin 600 is 260 passengers. And I guess the main reason that might put people off would be the running cost. I think that probably goes up quite a lot for the older planes. But seeing as money really isn't much of an issue in the game, you're best off just going for whatever's going to give you the best capacity. Now there is one here, this one, the Yeathhogan, which is basically a Concorde, which is incredibly fast, but its capacity is a lot less. and actually because this is quite a short route, I'd rather go for bigger capacity and a slower speed. When you start building airports on different sides of the map, that's when you want to go for speed. But for now, this Darwin 600 is going to be absolutely fine. So we just got the 2 airports at the moment. You can see there. So I get one plane going first. I just wanted to get that going before I bought any more, just to check that it was going to have plenty of passengers and mail to pick up, and it does. So it doesn't take me long, and I start building a couple more. I think I just clone it once more actually, this plane, but then I do build 2 more airports and get them all connected up as well. So yeah, it's coming along quite nicely, this place here, Fenningpool Falls. Population 27,000. I think by the end of this video that's jumped up to over 30,000. So it just shows that when you start really getting lots of different stations in a town, and when you start delivering different goods and in different ways, I think that has an effect on the growth. So this town, also later in the game, or later in this video I should say, I do link some valuables as well, some banks. So I think when you start transporting different types of goods like that, I think that encourages them to grow more because you're offering an extra service to the town. I believe that's how it works anyway. I've never really looked into the AI of this game too much, but that's certainly what I seem to remember from experience. Now, I was just checking on the factory there and what I would need to get it producing goods. I could get it some livestock, although even that isn't very local. But really, there's no livestock anywhere near it, and there's no steel anywhere near it either. So I decided against that. That was going to be my next project, to try and get that producing some goods. But in the end, it just didn't look viable, so I moved on. I will do some more industrial connections soon. They can be quite profitable, although it's a bit of a tricky one. The goods transportation, because you end up often making the routes either really short and using road vehicles like I've done with the coal trucks, or making them really long, and then they just get a bit tricky. The best way to do a long one with goods is trains, but you end up with massive train tracks going all over your map, and it doesn't really make you that much money. So generally I keep the long train tracks for passengers and mail, and I tend to try and keep the industrial connections as short as I can and use road vehicles. And that's not so much to make money, it's more because I'm a bit of a completist, and I quite like everything on the map to be connected to something else in some way. It's not always possible, but eventually I'd like to try and link all the different industrial places up. Inevitably you get some that shut, so as soon as you build on them, suddenly they shut down, which is really annoying, and you have to delete all your stuff. But you do also get new ones cropping up, and you get some that, like you see at the bottom of the screen there, some of them increase capacity, and again you can see at the bottom of the screen there, some of them decrease capacity as well. And in my experience, generally with the industries, the more you deliver to them and the more you take away, their capacities do increase. But you do need quite significant investment for that to happen. So you might get, say, a factory that produces goods and you're delivering lots to it, but if you're not taking those goods away, its production stays pretty low. So what you need to do is sort of overtake the goods away. You need to have a capacity to take more goods away than are being produced, and then eventually it sort of catches up and starts producing more, as long as you're delivering lots as well. So it can be quite tricky, and often you can end up with something like the factories having 2 or 3 different delivery stations from different places, just to sort of really overload it with goods. So here I think I'm just looking at how I can connect these outer cities a bit more. I was looking at trying to get another airport, I believe, up here, I thought actually, I think before that, I think I'd do another boat. I literally recorded this half an hour ago, and I've already forgotten what I did. But you can see there up in the corner there, there's another city there. So I wanted to start getting that connected. Now, if you've been paying attention, the alerts at the bottom of the screen, we've had 2 of them already in this video alerting me to new banks being constructed within the towns that I'm in. And I was keeping an eye on that because I quite like connecting the banks up. So that is what I do at the end of the video, because we end up with 3 banks all connected already with roads. Oh yes, I've forgotten this bit. So what I did first here, instead of connecting this far town with boats or with airplanes, I decided to do a train first, and I was being a bit of an idiot here and deleting in the wrong way, and I couldn't quite work out what I was doing. I was deleting rather than demolishing, so then I realised that I needed to demolish and then build a new station. Because generally with stations, if you can build wider ones so that the trains don't have to use the same platform, then it's well worth doing that. If you don't, you can often end up with lots of trains just kind of sitting around waiting for a platform to be available. So yeah, so this is a pretty straightforward little route here. Oh, I got to build my first tunnel here, which was quite exciting. It's the first tunnel I think that I've done so far in this game. So you can see here we've got a bit of a mountain to go through, and then I went on to explain something that I discovered a long time ago when I played this game. There's actually something built into the game. I don't know, I'm assuming it's an inbuilt cheat rather than a bug, but you'll see me in a minute roughly demonstrating. Here we go. So if you go to the edge of the map and you try and find the longest tunnel you can build, if you hold down shift and then try to build it, instead of building it, it tells you down the bottom there your estimated cost. And one day I was playing the game a long time ago when the game first came out, and I was trying to find the longest, most expensive tunnel I could build. And so I was going around the outside of the map and you know, clicking like this, and suddenly it said estimated income, and it was in the hundreds of millions. And so when I built the tunnel, it gave me hundreds of millions of pounds. So I'm assuming that was an inbuilt cheat, which I discovered purely by accident, and I'd never heard anyone else find that. I mean, when this game first came out, the internet wasn't really a thing, so it wasn't that easy to share this sort of information with people. But yeah, I had used it in the past, but to be honest, this game, it's not really about making money. It's quite easy to make money in the game, so a cheat like that gives you money isn't really needed. But it was quite an interesting thing to find. So yeah, I was pretty happy with that. When I started this game in the year 2000, I think, yeah, where are we now? September 2007. So yeah, I think I started in 2000. So you can start the game back in the 1950s, and if you do that, it's a bit more of a challenge to make money, but it still doesn't take you long, and that's purely because all the vehicles are so slow, so it's just a slower process. But yeah, the game isn't really about making money. It's more about just the fun of connecting up the cities and getting all your transport systems working and efficient, basically, and obviously getting the cities to expand. It's not really a money orientated game. Now I was also talking about my impressions of this game from my childhood as well, and I used to play this sort of thing a lot when I was young. So games like this where you have to think, you have to plan, you have to strategize, you have to plan ahead as well. I didn't really play many sort of mindless games when I was young, so I think things like car racing games and football games. I had a couple of them, but I didn't play them much because they just lost my interest. I could play for an hour, but then they'd be boring because you're just doing the same thing over and over again. I think I played something like Grand Theft Auto. I used to play a little bit, but again, it would be an hour or so, and then I'd just think, well, what am I doing? Mindlessly going around killing people and crashing my cars and stuff. And it just didn't hold my interest. But games like this, I could play this stuff for hours and hours and hours, and never get bored. I really never get bored of stuff like this. And it's so good for your brain as well, this sort of game. It really gets your brain working and thinking, and because of that, I think this games like this are perfect for children. They really are. I highly encourage you, if you have children or if you're going to have them one day, encourage them to play strategy games like this, because it really gets them thinking about consequences and planning ahead, and obviously it teaches them a little bit about money as well, actually. So it's pretty good around. I'm a very organised person in real life, and I think it's because I used to play games like this so much when I was young, because it's all about planning, it's all about strategizing and working out the best way of organising stuff. Whether that's, in this case, transport systems, or in another game like what else am I playing on the channel? Stuff like Foundation, where it's all about supply routes. Making sure that one house is supplying to another one, and your sort of supply chains are all working well. It's a very good thing to teach children, that sort of stuff. It really gets them thinking in a different manner, rather than just, who can I kill today in this game? First person shooters, I played them on and off when I was younger, but again, they just lost my interest. Just too repetitive and mind numbing, quite frankly. And I don't have children, but when I do, they won't be playing that sort of game. I won't let them, because it's just not good for them at all. It's really not. I want my children to grow up playing games that make them think, not just mindless violence. So there we go. That's my bit of parenting advice for the day. So anyway, back to the video. You can see there I was just building another dock because I wanted to get our city up in the corner there connected again. So here I was just checking what vehicle I've been using before, and it was the Bakewell 300 hovercraft. So that's what I'm going to use again. They only transport passengers, but that's fine from the docks. You don't need to be worrying about mail. I've got plenty of other ways of transporting mail. So yeah, so this place up here, I've already got the train line in there and sorted out. So I thought I might as well get it connected with a dock as well, connected down to this middle town here, Chond Town. They do come up with some interesting names for these towns. So I'll get 2 of them going, and that'll be plenty. So now that's 2 ways that it's connected. And then I thought, that's just crying out for an airport. In fact, there's 2 cities up that end of the game. So I was just looking at these airports, and clearly you can see there's a lot of passengers and a lot of mail sitting at these airports. And I had these other 2 cities up here, and I just thought, yeah, let's get going with some airports up here as well. So you can see here, this is when I remembered that there was actually a bigger one, the Intercontinental, but I stuck with the International to start with. It has 2 runways on it. The other one has 3, but 2 will be plenty for now. I don't know, I may try to expand later on, but for now I don't think it's going to be a big issue. So just trying to pick out the best spot to have these. I decided with this one, it didn't really make sense to have it there, so I wanted it to connect to the train station, because the train station is already in the middle and it's already drawing in plenty of people. And if you attach the two things together, it increases the size of the catchment area. So I thought that made sense, but obviously I'd already built the train line here, so I needed to reroute the train line, which I am about to do, so that I could build the airport connected to it. So pretty simple, I just had to rebuild the train line down here and then delete the other line so that I had room for the airport to go in. I may do some land connections at some point with this city, but it's a fair distance away from the other cities by road, so I may not do that. We will have to wait and see. So I was just trying to pick the best spot for it here. I thought I'd just get it right, as snug in there as I could, just to try and increase the catchment area over the town. Just finding the right plane here, so the Darwin 600 again, because that's the one I'm going for at the moment. There will be some much better planes that come along a bit later in the game, ones that have really good capacity and really good speed, whereas at the moment you sort of have to pick one or the other. So I went with capacity, because again these aren't really travelling too longer distances. So what I do, I connect, I built two airports, didn't I? Yeah, so this first one I connect. Actually, no, the furthest one I connect to our original town, and then this one here, Chon Town, I build a couple of planes again here, and I get these ones connected to the other airport, which is a bit further away. I did mess one of these routes up, actually, because I accidentally clicked on the hangar instead of the airport, and so they ended up not having the right directions to actually fly to the right places. But you'll see I correct that in a minute, because I got a little alert pop up at the bottom of the screen. It confused the hell out of me, because I didn't realise that you could do that. I didn't realise that you could click on the hangar as a destination rather than the airport as a whole. But yeah, that gets sorted out in a minute. It was a bit of a pain. But there we go. You live and learn, don't you? Yes, you can see the alert at the bottom there. Aircraft 3 has too few orders in the schedule, and I saw that and I thought, what? No way, it's got 2. But when I clicked on it, it does quite clearly say, as you can see in a second here, it says Grunthorpe East Hangar instead of Grunthorpe East. So I had to just delete that off and then re-enter the right destination. Ooh, excuse me while I yawn down the microphone at you. I do apologise. I'm not bored, honest. It's just there's a lot of talking, because when you're recording these things and you're playing at the same time, your mind is pretty active because you're multitasking. Whereas when you do a voiceover like this for a pre-recorded video, it's a bit different, because all you're doing is talking, and so your brain isn't really working properly. The Foster Mark II Superbus. Now this is one that I did definitely accept, because I wanted to upgrade all of our buses to this superior design. Here you can see I was just correcting the second plane, making sure that all their destinations were correct, and they were. So I wanted to replace all of our buses, because it's quite a big upgrade actually going from the Mark 1 to the Mark 2. I think they get a slightly increased capacity, but the main thing is speed. Eventually you do get double-decker buses in the game as well, which have a much larger capacity, which is very cool. But for now I just wanted to replace these ones that I had. And there is actually a function in the game to auto-replace vehicles. But it took me a minute to find it. Now I know when the game first came out you couldn't do anything like that. You had to individually tell every vehicle to go into a depot. You then had to delete that vehicle and rebuild a new one, and you had to then tell it where to go because it didn't remember from the one that you deleted. Then in a later update of the game they made it so if you deleted a vehicle in a depot and then rebuilt a new vehicle that was upgraded, it remembered the destination from the vehicle you just deleted. So that was good, but it's still very long-winded. If you later in the game when you get an upgrade and you've got 200 road vehicles, you certainly do not want to be doing that for every individual one. And so at some point as you can see me looking here, there's this replace vehicles option. So you can see you get two lists. So the one on the left are the ones that you've got. So the Foster bus I've got 12 of. And then on the right list are the ones that it could be replaced with. So you just highlight the two and then you just click start replacing vehicles and they do it automatically. So each vehicle would individually go into the depots and then come out having upgraded to the superior bus, which is fantastic. Saves you a lot of time and effort. So this one I just got going again because I didn't need to individually replace that one. And it doesn't take long. You'll see it on the left there. There we go. So we've automatically there got a Foster Mark II Superbus. One of my 12 has now become that. So I've got 11 and 1. And then very quickly those 11 will all upgrade to the Mark IIs. Simple little things like that that make a game like this so much better because you're not wasting all your time doing these menial tasks. You have to excuse me for just a moment. I'm being offered cheese by my girlfriend, which is very nice of her. She doesn't usually distract me when I'm recording these audios, but when she's offering me some halloumi cheese, I find it very hard to say no. So I will say yes and thank her muchly. And I'll try not to munch down the microphone at you. I'll just have a couple of pieces, thank you. Oh, yummy. Right, where was I? I think this is now where I was looking at getting the banks set up. So I had to have a look around. Yes, you can see at the bottom here, new bank under construction. So that piqued my interest a bit because I do like to try and connect the banks if I can. So I was having a look for where the banks were, and it turned out actually that one wasn't very useful because that's in that city over there on its own. Now that may well prove useful in the next video when I start connecting these big cities over here. However, it got me thinking about where else the banks are. So there's obviously my main town's over here. So you've got one in the middle here of Fenningpool Falls. I then found one over this side in Radstone as well. And then, much to my surprise, I actually discovered there was one over here in, where was it, in Leston? No, not in Leston, in Wanwell as well. Which is surprising because that's a very low population town. I wouldn't expect that to have a bank. Usually they don't get a bank until much bigger. But I wasn't complaining. So if you look at these ones, this one's 10,700 and that one doesn't have a bank. Now that may be that they only build a bank once you're transporting a certain amount of goods and people to and from that town. And obviously that first small town was one of my early places that I developed. So it could just be that I've done enough transporting to and from there to make them want to build a bank. I wasn't complaining either way. So yeah. So the banks produce bags of valuables, and in this case they always build right in the middle of a town, so it's very hard to get any sort of connection to them other than road. If you're lucky they might build next to where you've already got something like a train station, but often they won't. So I decided to just go with road vehicles. So you build the small goods loading bays outside them, so I went with a sort of a double loading bay outside each one. I put a new depot down here, and I do put another one on the route as well. Just, it's always a good idea to give the road vehicles multiple depots to get into, so they don't have to go too far out of their way to get into a depot. And there's a couple of armoured trucks available, so I just went with the best one. Obviously, it's the quickest, and it can hold the biggest capacity as well. And because I've got 3 banks, I wanted each bank to be connected to each of the other 2. So I do two armoured trucks per route. So each bank will be visited by 4 different trucks in the end. Oh, this halloumi cheese is yummy. I wouldn't usually eat while doing these recordings, but I've not actually had my lunch yet today, and it's 3:30 in the afternoon. In fact, I haven't eaten anything yet today. So I am quite hungry, and when someone offers me some lovely halloumi cheese, I find it very hard to say no. But I do appreciate that I do need to talk, because there's not too much to look at in this sort of game, especially when I'm doing a voiceover rather than a live recording. So you can see I've set up, I think that was all of the different routes there. Actually, there's another bank there in Buntborough. I'm not sure if that was one of the towns that I'm already in or not. I'll have to check that out for the next video. So that was all of the routes, and I'll put down the extra depot as well. So I think we're getting close to the end of the video now. I was just checking the different stops to make sure that the mail vans were working properly and actually visiting the correct stops, which they are. And you can earn a fair bit of money, I think, for valuables. Obviously, valuables in real life are valuable, hence the name. So yeah, I think I should get a decent bit of income from these trucks, and I'll keep an eye on it. It might be that I expand and get more trucks if some of the banks are producing more valuables than I'm moving, and if they're profitable, then I may expand that a bit. It's one of those things in this game, certainly with the passenger depots. So mainly the buses. You can easily keep putting more buses on a bus stop, and it will just keep on, certainly in a big town like this, it'll just keep on producing more passengers. But all you end up doing is just clogging up the roads, so it's not worth it. I've done an experiment in the past where you have a bus stop in the middle of one of the main towns, and you could put sort of 50 buses going to it, and you end up with just a massive queue of traffic basically, so it's just not worth it. So yeah, we are getting to the end of the episode. What I was just doing here is just showing you these 3 large cities over here, which I've just started building towards. That's going to be the focus of my next project. So these 3 cities are just crying out to be linked together in as many different ways as possible. So I'll probably do airports, I'll do road vehicles, trains. I may even do some boats, because I think there's a sort of canal system linking at least 2 of those cities. I'll have to have a look in a bit more depth at that. And I may come back to these cities here. I may do some road connections up here, maybe get some buses. I know it's quite a long route there, and I've got trains, but I may do some buses as well. I just like to try and get all the cities connected in as many different ways as I can. Even if some of the routes aren't particularly profitable, I think it probably helps the game if you're transporting in multiple different ways. So I'm just checking the valuables there, and they are working. So yeah, thank you very much for joining me. I hope this commentary hasn't been too strange today. It's a bit different and a bit disorganised because of how I've had to do it. So I do apologise for that, and hopefully my speaker or my microphone is now working properly. So thanks for joining me, and I will see you in the next video hopefully. So take care until then. Bye for now.